All right, hello everyone. For those of you that do not know me, my name is Ethan Brown. I am a composer just like you all, and I'm putting this together to help you all and do my due diligence for this community. I know that the transition period is quite tough for some of you, for most of you actually, and I just hope that this truly is able to make some of these things more clear and more easier to understand. That is the whole goal of this. We're going to be talking about a few tips, a few tidbits that I think will help get you started when you start a new project in Dorico. I will also be going through what it looks like when you export an XML from Finale and actually import it into Dorico, and what it looks like, and some of the things that you'll have to fix as the UI is different than Finale's UI. And so, yeah, I apologize for the sound quality in advance. My microphone is actually in my wife's car currently, so I'm using my iPhone microphone, but I tested it and it seemed to work just fine. So hopefully this works. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. I am using the iMac 2022 version of it, and I have Mac OS 14.6, and I know that the new Mac OS is actually supposed to release in September. So that is my equipment, and so let's go ahead and just dive right in. I'm going to quit Dorico so that I can open up a new one, and it shows you exactly what it looks like when you open a new document. All right, so as you can see, Dorico is currently open. And this is kind of what you'll see. If you didn't import anything already, you won't see anything here in the Open Recent. You'll probably go to Create New, and you have a bit of options here. So you have band options, which is really very helpful. Grade 5 through 6 is my template. That won't be there. But fanfares, high school band, junior high, marching band, and another, actually, that's also mine. Marching band will be here. So these four options will be here, which is very nice, and all this will do is it will create the instrumentation based on what you clicked. You also have brass band, concert band, pit band, chamber stuff, choral stuff, jazz, orchestral, and solo. Guitar, lead sheet, organ, piano. So like if you want to create a piano draft, you can do that through a solo piano template, which is really helpful. But let's say you're getting ready to create a piece of music that you don't even know anything about yet. It's just a blank slate. So you'll click this empty template here, and the only option is empty. You will input the project title. You'll put your name, or if you're an arranger, you'll put ARR dot and then your name, just as you know. You have a couple options here. Letter. Actually, you have a bunch of options. We're just going to keep it to letter. But just so you know, letter is your 8x11. Legal is your 8.5x14. And then tabloid is your 11x17 paper. So it's very important to know, depending on what you're looking for. Rastral size, don't worry about that yet. We will get to that in just a second. Default is 3, and then you have your music font, which is Bravura, which is very, very common, which you'll find in a lot of publications. And then Academico is your text font, which you will also find in a lot of standard publications. You can choose your time signature, your bar number, if you know the frameworks of your piece. But if you don't, you can just kind of do whatever, and your key signature. Once you click this Create Project button, Dorico is going to create a project. Now, this is the first screen that you'll find. You will see. Let me full screen it here. There we go. You can add by single player, add by section player, and luckily it just gives you a nice description and examples of what it means. But I typically, when I start a new project and I don't really know what I want yet, I will click Add Ensemble. Add Ensemble is really nice. You have two options here. You can build or you can choose. For example, woodwind/brass, this is just the default thing it comes up with. Wind band, it already has everything here. 1 to a part, everything except percussion, because you kind of just get to decide what percussion you want. So it won't do percussion for you unless you build it yourself. But if you choose, you have wind ensemble, wind band, and it's just very nice, very refreshing to see these kinds of options. So let's just click wind band for the sake of today. And there you go. So it already inputted everything here. And let's create one percussion player. You have a couple options. You have unpitched percussion and pitched percussion. Do whatever you fancy. To find the piano, it is actually going to be in keyboards versus pitched percussion, because I know sometimes it's in pitched in some other programs, but you'll find a bunch of stuff here. Anyway, let us choose something. Let's just do timpani for the sake of today. Default. It'll empty player and it'll turn into a timpani. And there you go. So that's very, very helpful. Actually, I should probably do another percussion just so I can show you something very neat. We'll just do bass drum. So we'll do bass drum and timpani. First thing is, while you're on the setup mode, there are a couple things you can do if you so choose. I know that sometimes trumpets, well, depending on the composer, composers like to put trumpets before the horns. If you so choose, you can just drag and it'll apply it both on the score and on the setup page. I also believe that you can, so if you hold shift and you click down on the last option, you can move all three, which is very helpful, very handy, but we are not going to do that. I am a believer of horns first before trumpets. Once you have your layout the way that you want it in terms of instrumentation, the next thing I always do if I have percussion in the project is actually change the title, change the name, because it'll show up as bass drum and then the default abbreviation of the instrument, which is fine, but I like to call this percussion 1, not bass drum. So in order to do that, I'm showing you what not to do. You can edit the names. If you put percussion 1 here, it's going to work just fine, but you will find complications, as I have found complications and learned the way that you should do it. So don't do this. Leave this alone unless you want to change the actual name of the instrument. To change the name of the part, just double click here, put in your desired title, and either click enter or just enter out of it. Now, you will notice that it did not change to percussion 1. There's a reason for this. This is just to help you understand what you're seeing in your instrumentation. And it helps when you have multiple instruments. So if I had like bass drum, crash, snare drum, and suspended cymbal all in percussion 1, you'll see these underneath bass drum if I had those. And sometimes when you are doing bass drum and crash cymbal at the same time, it'll show up in the score, but it'll have bass drum and crash cymbal underneath and not percussion 1 as a total unit. And I like to include things in their total form. So percussion 1 is what's going to happen here. Now, like I said, you won't find it in bass drum, or you won't find it on the score yet, and there's a reason for this, and we are going to actually talk about that next. So once you are done with setup, if you know ahead of time that this is going to be a multi-movement work, you will go underneath where it says flows. Flows are what we call movements. That's what Dorico projects it as, and you're just going to click this add flow button, and that will add a new flow or a new movement, which you can retitle, which is very handy. So you'll find a new flow. By default, a flow is on a brand new page, but if you want to include a new flow that is on the same page, similar to Gustav Holst's first or second suite, you can, in fact, do that. Okay, so you can create the new movement. You can put it on the same page if you so choose. We will get into that in just a second. So I will actually keep Flow 2 open just so that I can demonstrate that. Once you are done with your instrumentation, you'll just click over to write mode, or you can do Command 2 or Control 2 depending on what device you have. So Command 1 or Control 1 is setup, Control 2 or Command 2 is write. Control 3 or Command 3 is engrave. Control 4 or Command 4 is play, which is how you can choose your playback options and your mixers and your you can fine-tune things very similar to a DAW, which is very helpful. And then Control 5 or Command 5 is print, which is when you are finished with the project. So going back to write mode, this is what you'll see when you create your instrumentation. Not a whole lot of information here yet. It'll have the title page and it'll have your name because that's what you put in when you first created the file. The very first thing that I would do when I create a project, this is your first sort of like tidbit. I go into project info here, which you'll find under file or Command or Control I. There are 2 flows. So here's flow 1, flow 2. It'll have the titles of the flow if you so choose. Let's go to project though. So you have the title, which is what you inputted. You can input a subtitle. You can input a dedication, a composer, everything that you see here, copyright, work number, composition, your composer dates. Now, the thing is with Dorico, by default, title, composer, and copyright will show up whenever you input that information. And I think publisher, editor, copyist as well. Things like work number, composition year, composer dates, other information, and subtitle will not show up unless you actually input the keyframes. Now, this is something more in-depth, so I want this to just sort of be like what you do when you first open a project in Dorico. So keyframes is something a little more complex and something that we can get into in a later video. But just put in your basic information because that's really all you need right now unless you have the frameworks of the piece set up. So once that's done, you will see the things that you have inputted. If you go to engrave mode, and you'll click this Insert Frames button, this little frame icon, you'll see some colored boxes. These are your text frames. The blues are your actual music frames, text frames, and then pink is a graphic frame. So this is when you can insert things like images, like cover art when you create your cover pages, etc., etc. So we don't need to input that just at the moment, but it is there for your purposes. But if you click a green text frame, this is what you will find. There are a few options here. I will zoom in so you can see. Firstly, you can change. So this is a keyframe, by the way. This is a text token. But more on that later. So I'm going to create the whole thing, and I like to put it in big Castellan and default it by 30. So once that's done, you can see right off the bat that there is a lot of space in between the first staff and the top of the page. There's a way that you can enhance this, making it look a little bigger, making it look a little cleaner. You'll hit one of these green boxes. To choose one of these boxes, you can either click on it, or you can use your arrow keys to choose the one that you want to edit. Now, off to the left, you'll see these constraints. These are really, really nice. If you only want to move one side and it doesn't affect the others, you can lock these in place and it won't move, which is very helpful. So I'll click the bottom one, and I'm going to move it a substantial amount at first, just so I can see what it looks like. So to do that, you're going to hold Control and Option, or Command and Option if you're on Mac, and you will click the arrow keys, and you will see that it moves it in substantial increments. I'm going to put it about right there. So here was default, and I'm going to put it right there. Now, this is to start. Let's say I want it to fill up the space just a little bit more. What you'll do is you'll hold Option instead. Only Option, not Control and Option or Command and Option, just Option and the arrow keys, and you will see that it moves minuscule increments, which is very, very helpful when you are typesetting at the end of your piece, when you are engraving. So those are the options that you can do right off the bat. Now the reason why I extended this is because the font I chose, which I like the font, so I don't want to change it, but I just want to make it bigger. So I can make it bigger and it will fill up the space. Now, if I change that to 37 without the text frame, let's just actually I'll show you. So when you put it into the original position, you will see that it kind of like cuts things off, and I don't really like how that looks. Obviously, that doesn't look clean to me. So that is why I made it bigger, such as like that. And it just fills up the space and makes things look really, really nice. Once the title is complete and the subtitle, if you have one, this next key or text box right here is the layout. Now, we are particularly in the score. So, real fast. Okay, there you go. You can put lyricists here. That's by default. But I like to do that little score in the top corner. This is where you can put that, if you so choose. Alright, there you go. Very nice, very neat, very organized. Put this back. Okay. Oh, wait, no, not yet. Sorry, one other thing. And then once you're done with that, you have your name, project composer. This is the text token for that as well. And I always do italics. You can do whatever you want. You can change the parameters just as you feel. But you can do this, and then I'm also going to input my ASCAP here, which is already in italics because I made it known that this text box is going to be in italics, so you don't really need to redo it, which is very helpful. Once that's done, you will show it. You will see that it shows up exactly as you showed it. Put that back to normal. Go back to write mode, and there you go. So you have this information done. The next thing I do after I do the file information, the title, etc., copyright will be down here if I were to type that in. The next thing I do is actually page layout. Do this now so that you don't have to do it later when you find collisions as you're implementing the music, because that can be quite frustrating. So do this now. You will go into layout options. You can do this a couple ways. You can hold Shift and Command and click L. That'll bring you into layout options. Or you can go up to the top here where it says library and click layout options. It's really, what is really nice about Dorico is it will show you the key commands right next to you. So next thing you go into is layout options. By default, it starts in staves and systems, which is fine, but we're actually going to start in page setup. So once you are in page setup, there are a few things that you should do. If you didn't do it already when you created the project like you saw in the beginning, you should create your size. We're going to keep it in, actually this is a full win band, so we're going to do 11 by 17 just so I can just demonstrate a few things. We're going to click apply. You'll see a difference. You'll see automatically that the collisions went away, which is very helpful. However, you will find that when you implement music, collisions will naturally happen, such as things like slurs or ties or whatever the case may be. And that is because it's still too close to comfort. It's a lot better than it was before, but it's still too close. This is where the space size comes in and the raster size. So the raster size is the sizes between each stave. By default, you're on 3. I recommend, if you're doing an 11 by 17, to either do a 7 or an 8, depending on your instrumentation. You will see automatically that it puts it in a fixed position, which is wonderful, and looks very clean, looks very neat, and it spaces things evenly, which is wonderful. Now, there are a couple things you can do. Let's say that you have a very large work, a symphony, and your instrumentation is more than the typical wind band wind symphony setting. And when you have these instruments that extend the page, it can be quite difficult to show everything. And let's say that the commissioner, let's just say it's a commissioner or a director, wants to see everything and not a condensed score. you will find that it will be a little difficult to show everything without collisions. Size 8 sometimes doesn't cut it. Sometimes you need to put a custom space size. When you put a custom raster size, you can change this number here in the space size, and it will actually fill out the page a lot cleaner, a lot better, so those collisions don't happen. Luckily, size 8 works for now because we have not implemented music. You will find that size 8 works until you start implementing music, and then you might need to change some things. This, of course, depends on what piece you're writing. Some other things, you can change the page margins, which is the actual corners of the page. So if I were to change top left, you will see the score kind of up in the corner or down in the corner if I changed the values, depending on if I increased it or decreased it. That's very, very helpful. Music frame margins is a little different. Music frame margins, if you change those, changes how these frames are, which you can also just change yourself by using your arrow keys or even dragging. So you can see that it changed that. That is if you want to go that route. You have that option here in music frame margins. Flows, like I said, this is if you have a multi-movement work. Now, like I mentioned before, currently we have 2 flows. We have the first one, and then we have the second one here. By default, it has it on a separate page. As you can see, always start on a new page. Now, like I said previously, if you want to go down the route of being like a Gustav Holst first suite, second suite situation, where the flow is on the existing page, just kind of further down, you can click Allow on existing page, and you will see that the new flow will start on it. Now, we haven't implemented music, so it'll show it as the quote-unquote new page, but technically this is page 3, not the new page, page 1 of a new flow. So technically, if there was music here, you would see it on the existing page. So you have that option if you so choose, which is very helpful. You have some more things here. You can show the heading. So if I clicked for all flows, you will see what that looks like. Flow 2, flow 1 would not show up in score, but it would show up in part. So let's go to Piccolo. You'll see flow 1, flow 2. Sometimes I like those if I have an actual title for the movement, but I don't. So you can click not for first flow, or you can click never, and you can hit apply, and those will go away, making the music actually clean itself up without even actually doing cleaning to begin with, which is really nice. So you have some more options here. I'll let you explore those. That does not really pertain into what you should do when you first open a new document. So once you finish your page size, your space size for the score, you can also do this for the part if you so choose. So by default, it is on 3. I want every part to have a raster size because it is a large work, let's say, a raster size of size 5. This won't do anything now because there's no music, but if there was music, you would see it very similar to how you're looking at this score. It's very spaced out. It'll create more pages, but it'll make the music cleaner and clearer, which is always very nice. But once you got that down, go back into layout options. The next tidbit number 2, if you will, is bar numbers. I always create the bar numbers now versus later. You have a few options. Every system, every so amount of bars. If you want it to appear every 5 bars or 10 bars, you can do that. Or every bar, which I do. Centered on the bar, very, very helpful. Show below the bottom staff of system you'll see here. I always like to show it on the bottom. I know some of you like to do the top, so you can do the top if you so choose. You have a few options here. You can show for specific players, which is really helpful if you want players to not have bar numbers, such as like something that is like an optional part, or like something that is more for cues, like a director's sheet. You could do that here if you were to create an actual player for that. You can create or change the distances from staves, which is really, really wonderful and nice. You can experiment that. But the first thing you should do is create bar numbers, and I like to create rectangle enclosures. Show bars at rehearsal marks. And there you go. So it's at the bottom, and you'll notice that you don't have to drag any of it to make it look neat and organized. It's already there automatically, which is just so great. Now, it is smaller because the raster size is bigger because we have a full wind band score. So in order to change that, this is tidbit number 3. You will go into paragraph styles by going through library paragraph styles. Bar numbers up top. What they have by default for the score and parts is 9. Now what I've found is 9 point for parts is perfectly fine. For the score, I like to go with 15, which you will see what this looks like here in a second. 15 is a good medium, and it'll show what it looks like also, which is really cool. You can do absolute or staff relative. Staff relative is really nice because it puts it in a fixed position, and it puts it in such a way where every single space between each number is the same. So you don't have to worry about that stuff. If you want it to be absolute, though, you can do that. But I like staff relative. And then you have some other options here. And then you'll notice that it becomes bigger. Let's bring it to 25, so you can actually see it. Okay, perfect. As music gets implemented, naturally you'll find these individual bars, elongate depending on what you're writing, or the vertical justification will change also. And sometimes these big bar numbers can get in the way of the vertical justification once you start implementing music, which is why I usually do 15, because it'll eventually even itself out, which is very nice and very helpful. So bar numbers are done. The next tidbit, number 4, is do this right now so you don't worry about it later. Go back into the paragraph styles, find layout name. By default, it is size 14 and absolute. This is perfectly fine. I have found no problems with this. Some like the borders. I do not. If you don't want a border, you can uncheck that box, hit OK, and when you go into your parts, you won't find a border, which I like better. I just like the free flow of the look of it. So you do this now so that you don't have to do it later. Or if you like the border, you don't even have to mess with anything. But if you don't like it, then go into paragraph styles, layout name, get rid of the border, change the font, do whatever you need to do, and you'll find a lot of things here. So I'll let you explore these things. This is, like I said, this is just sort of what to do when you open a project. So that was tidbit 4 when starting a new project. The next thing that I would automatically do is obviously put in the tempo. So let's just put Allegro. By default, it'll have 140. You'll notice this slider here. Very, very useful, you'll find, I feel. You can fine-tune what you're looking for. So you can have a broad selection or a more finite selection, which is great. And then you can change your tempo. This tap tempo, very useful as well if you want to use that. Further down, you have your tempo equation if you want to use that as well, like if you're doing swing or something a little like more dotted quarter equals quarter. You can have those equations here. Then you have your reset tempo, relative tempo change, gradual tempo change. You'll find those as you write music. You have your tempo completed. Now what you're going to do is you're going to open the properties panel. There's 2 ways to do this. This little arrow and this little box that highlights. You'll click that and the properties panel shows up. Or you can do Control 8 or Command 8. Once the properties panel shows up, you have a few things you can do. Automatically, I change the scale to 180 for the size. It'll show up a little bit bigger, more easier to see when you print the score out on paper. It just looks better. Um, you have text, you have the actual tempo. Let's say that I want to be a little more brisk, so I'll put 145 instead of 140, just a little bit more. And you'll see that it automatically changes here, which will change the play out or the playback when you hit play. And text shown, metronome mark shown. Sometimes you don't want the text. That's fine. You can do that here, or you want the text but not the metronome. As you'll see, it changes that. You can put parentheses for the metronomes. You can put approximate for the metronome. Very, very helpful. I'll zoom in. There we go. So if you want approximate, you can. You can also change the appearance. Your C, CA, circa, approx, and as the sign. As the actual little squiggles there, which is very, very cool. So you have options here, which is nice. So once you are finished with this, go back into layout options, which is Command and Shift L or Control and Shift L. Or you can go into Library and hit Layout Options. The next tidbit is time signatures. This kind of really ropes in with 4, so we'll just keep it tidbit 4. But I am a firm believer of big time signatures. I'm sure most of you are as well. You have these options. What's really nice about Dorico is it shows pictures of everything you're doing, which is great most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time it does when you need to see the justifications and what it will look like in the end result, which is very nice. So big time signature, and then narrow sans serif. You have a few font options if you so choose. Click apply. Automatically and organizationally it will show up, and it looks clean, it looks nice. Nothing to really fix there. But once you click, if you want to click the time signature and change some options, go back to the properties panel. You can do some things here. Open style, denominator style, end interchangeable, common, if you wanted to put the C instead. Numerator style, separator, you have options there, and then hide time signature if you want it to be open, which is great for like a cadenza. So those are the options you can do here. Once you have that all implemented, you are pretty much ready to start writing music. The last tidbit, number 5, when starting a new project, like I previously explained, when I created percussion parts, I changed the name to percussion 1, but remember that it showed the instrument name instead of the part name. To do this, to change this, actually, all you need to do is go back into layout, click this staves and systems, and you'll go into this sort of menu, and you'll scroll all the way down, you'll find percussion 1. Now, this can be for any instrument, like I said. So if you change the title and setup, not the instrument, but the actual title, you can go into layout options and click the box for the title that you chose. But for this example, I did percussion 1. I don't want it to say bass drum. I want it to say percussion 1. So I will do that. Staff labels on first system, which is the first page of the score, full. Staff labels on subsequent, abbreviated. This is very standard. This is what I want to see. You have some other options here. I'll let you explore those. There's some more picture things like I was talking about if you want some of those things. But full and abbreviated for that. Click apply, and boom, there you go. Percussion 1 right here. Changes it up. It makes it look like how you want it to look like. And now you're pretty much ready to implement music. I believe that I want to start this as sort of like a series, but you can let me know. I know that there's a very well-known composer doing that right now. So perhaps I am not needed for that. Perhaps I can let him do it. But I actually want to create a part 2, which is legitimate tips when implementing music and text, so like score directions and whatnot. There are a bunch of secrets that Dorico has, and it's going to increase your workflow and make it extremely quick and efficient once you learn these secrets. That is the next video that I want to make. So part 2 will be actual tips on music. This was just tidbits on what to do when you create a new file, because there's a lot of options, there's a lot of things that you can do, and when you open up a blank file, it's blank and it looks intimidating, to say the least. And like I said, there's a bunch of stuff you can do. So I really hope that this helped you. And if it did, please share it with another composer that is going to transition or has transitioned and doesn't really know what to do or where to start. I understand the transitional process going from Finale to Dorico. That is something I did. And so I truly hope that this video helped. And if it did, please share it with another. And I really appreciate you all trusting me to create this video, those that have reached out. I am very, very honored and happy to do so. Like I said, I'm just wanting to create a more quick and efficient environment for you so that you don't have to experience the setbacks that this sort of decision created of dropping Finale. So I hope this helped, and if it did, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and hopefully you learned something. There is going to be a part 2, like I said, but there will be like a part 1B. Consider this a part 1A. Part 1B will be a video on exporting an XML file from Finale and importing into Dorico, and what it looks like, what to fix, and what to do further from there. Because it doesn't change music drastically, but page formatting is a different story, and there's a way to do it. And so that is something that I would like to show, as well as I have been doing it myself, but I had to do it by trial and error, and that took a lot of time. So if I can just save you the time, I'd love to show you. So part 1B will be implementing an XML file, and it will also be creating a page template set, which is going to just save you loads and loads of time. So that will be part 1B, and then part 2 will be actual tips of implementing music and learning the secrets and key commands and all that stuff. So thank you for watching. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that it makes it easier. And like I said, please share this with another composer in mind as they go through this process and see if it's right for them. And if they already have Dorico and they are just sort of, socially expressing their confusion, their frustration, share this with them. Hopefully that helps. But for now, I will leave you with this, and good luck out there. Let me know if you need any help, any further assistance. I will be creating the next video very soon. And thank you very much for trusting me, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.